Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda, citiesabc Open Business Council YouTube podcast series. Once again, we are here to profile some of the leading personalities in the world of business, technology, and thought leadership, and academia as well. People changing the world, creating better narratives for our cities, for our business, for our society. I have been the privilege to profile around 180 people so far in the last 1 year, and we're very excited about, first of all, what we've been learning and what I'm learning personally with all these people, but as well, the wonderful personalities that I've been having the privilege to speak with, and as well profile in both our platforms, citiesabc.com and openbusinesscouncil.org, but as well on all our social media, YouTube, and so forth. So today I have the privilege to welcome to our series Ken Gibbs, and Ken has a lot of capacities and personality, but I'll just go shortly with some of his hats and many hats, but as well the main things that he's been doing. So Ken Gibbs is presently the global head of social media marketing at Spotify, is a member of the Adweek Social Media Council, and co-host of The Art of Storytelling at Soho House in the US, in New York. And he's joining us from New York, by the way. So American-born Ken Gibbs is a senior digital marketing executive with over 2 decades of experience, and has been defining himself, but as well, you can find his work as a forward-thinking executive, and his extensive career and achievements as effectively profiling him close to different parts of the industries, from digital media, where he is one of the leading personalities worldwide, but as well working as a professional thought leader and digital marketeer, and as well executive that has been looking at digital strategies. And of course, the digital is key, especially on the media and all the areas, but as well in social media marketing and a lot of things that has been working, managing people, creating cultures of engagement, and looking at different areas from music to media to creative industries to writing and a lot of different things. So Gibbs is recognized as an industry respected visionary, and as well someone that is a change agent that looks at leading companies and the complexities of bridging both big global audience, local audiences, and of course all the different techniques and exercises that you have to look from marketing to technology to reaching and creating innovative solutions and increase, of course, and keep active audiences, but as well, from what I understood and met from Ken, as a strong sense of ethics, a strong sense of community, and a very big passion to change the world. So welcome to our series, Ken.
Wow, that was a great introduction. Thanks so much for having me, Dinis.
Pleasure is all mine, and I'm very excited. So Ken, I know that we don't have a lot of time for this first round, but I'm sure it'll be the first of a lot. So I want to start by, let's look at your history. I know that you have quite an interesting history, and as well as being part of a very strong digital community, but as well Afro-American community that has been changing the world. And actually from a cultural perspective is definitely the leading or one of the leading communities. But I would like to go from your background. I know that you start in different areas and you achieve the career that you have through kind of different moving targets, and I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, indeed. So my story started actually in Boston, based in academia. I was part of Africana.com, which was launched by Henry Louis Gates out of Harvard's Afro-Am program. And Africana.com was initially a CD-ROM that was meant to accompany the physical book of the Africana Encarta, which was a complete history of the diaspora when we were in partnership with Microsoft. But right around that time, .com destination started changing into daily publications. And I was the entertainment editor there. And we began to notice that despite Africana having a more academic lean to it, it was the entertainment content that was actually driving the page views and the traffic, which was how we monetized back then. So Africana was acquired by Time Warner just before Time Warner was acquired by AOL. So then I became part of the team that actually acquired AOL Black Voices, well, Black Voices at the time, from the Tribune Company in an all-stock deal out. And it was initially because the content that we had at Africana.com was somewhat unparalleled at that time, but Black Voices had the second largest online community for African Americans at the time, just behind Black Planet. So we purchased Black Voices. We relaunched AOL Black Voices. I worked out of the AOL campus in Dulles, VA for that entire year until the relaunch was successful, and then publishing steadily. And after that, I relocated to the New York area. In New York, you know, I continued to follow my passion for music and culture. I was a freelance writer for The Source magazine and other publications throughout New York in the music and culture space. But I also met during that time the team behind Radio One, and they were looking to launch Interactive One. And they had poached some talent from AOL that I worked with closely. And those guys reached out to me about a great opportunity to come on and be one of the founding members of Interactive One, which is today Urban One. And so at Urban One, my team created the strategy that basically provided the infrastructure for all of the radio stations there, allowing them to have the opportunity to have nationwide targeted campaigns, what have you, share content franchises on a universal content system, stuff that is fairly normal today for digital networks, but back then was foundational stuff that we had to bring to the table for organizations like this. And we also built all of the content verticals. News1.com, The Urban Daily, all of those websites, building the infrastructure for them as well. And what was also, I guess, ironic about that time was eventually Interactive One, now Urban One, went on to purchase Community Connect and Black Planet. So at this point, I think barely 10 years out of undergrad, I had played a part in acquiring the two largest communities for the African American community here in the States in Black Voices and Black Planet as well. But I moved on from Black Planet and went to join the team, the WB team, in a joint venture with Essence Magazine, where basically I sat within the Essence office, but I was a WB employee. And there we basically ran an internal digital studio. So we didn't have any impact over the editorial in the magazine, but if it was digital and sponsored, my team was responsible for it from ideation to execution and communication with the clients. We also ran a vertical ad network during that time called the Real Black Network. And I think what was really key about that for me was it gave me early insight into what has today blossomed into the creator economy, right? I think then from the front end, it was very clear that blogs were kind of taking the space of publications in the hearts and minds of people, but I don't think it was very clear how much revenue they were making. So when I was on the back end and actually cutting these checks to the blogs, I was like, wow, you know, these are sustainable businesses. Me, as the person running the ad network, I saw the value in the inventory that they were creating as well. But then I also started to see the opportunities that became available to some of the top tier bloggers, you know, to quickly make that leap from the web to positions of talking heads on TV, authors, and what have you. But the time at Essence was somewhat short-lived. I guess ultimately the JV didn't hit his numbers. Those things happened. We created much more inventory than they were able to sell and monetize at that time. So took some time off, dipped my toe back into the startup space. I was at loop21.com, which was basically a site that I tried to model along the lines of what Africana had looked like in its early days, but updating it in accordance with the time. So you're much more progressive in terms of the editorial position, but also the team dynamic and structure. No office, which today seems normal, but everyone worked remotely, spread completely across the country. And while that venture was a bit short-lived because I chose to move on to Viacom after, what was key about it was that I'd hired a young, nimble staff, one of which was actually Wesley Lowery, who's 2 Pulitzers in on 60 Minutes to this day as well. But Wesley was able to find George Zimmerman during the early hours of the Trayvon Martin scandal. And in that period, with Wesley appearing on like CNN, Good Morning America, and what have you, we received tons of traffic. But from a revenue perspective, it wasn't what it would have been only 5 years ago. And that was because a lot of the monetization had gone to video, right? But I could somewhat come from almost a print background. I didn't know very much about video. So at that time, I took the chance to go to BET, where I became, well, I walked into BET as the director of on TV operations. I left 8 years later as their first VP of social media marketing strategy. And that was great experience, incredible team that I grew there from 3 to nearly 40 people across New York, Atlanta, and LA. But after the Viacom CBS merger, when they got back together, they made some changes within the organization. I basically took that summer off, somewhat the beginning of the pandemic, really. And then towards the tail end of the summer, I joined the team at Amazon, where I led the social media strategy for all of the original series on the Prime Video service. And great opportunity. I was working with that team. My team was primarily on the West Coast. I was based here on the East Coast, looking at relocation to the West Coast as well. But, as we thought, we were all beginning to come out of the pandemic, I think Amazon was very just transparent about their expectation for people to be within the office 5 days a week. And after having been home for, over a year, quite honestly. I've got 2 young kids as well. I was looking for opportunities that allowed me a bit more flexibility, but also to get back to some of the early passions in my life. And music has always been a big one. And so the flexibility that Spotify offers, the culture that's also dedicated to creators, the creators that I first began to get insight into running that vertical ad network, and then the flexibility. Is really something that I think made this a great choice for me. But then I think lastly, the global nature of the organization. I think we're getting to that point where we're starting to see how the interconnectivity of the web, and particularly social media, is just flattening the world and really allowing us to communicate as one world in that way. It's super intriguing to me. I think it happens most easily through music. And I'm really excited about the opportunity I've got here to make an impact on that.
Wonderful. That's a 5-star stellar career, and as well actually changing a lot of stuff. So one of the questions I have, and I know that we have limited time, so during this time, and with of course dealing with some of the biggest media organizations in the world, and of course now you are in the media, in the biggest media or music organization in the planet that is responsible for 40% of the world music, Spotify. But my question is, so during the last 2 decades, you saw all the revolution that has been going from advertisement, from media, from paper to media to search engines, and of course like display, and as well even the platform as a service, the media as a service. All of that has been changing more than probably in all the history of humanity in the last 20 years. So what would be like the kind of the areas that you thought that actually during your career that were really impactful, and how do you see the industry right now?
The areas that I thought were really impactful in terms of, I'm sorry, the phases.
The media industry in general, from the last 2 decades, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the space that I'm in, quite honestly, the digital space has had to fight for respect, right? Respect, recognition, and understanding. And that now it is the tip of the spear for all media interactions. I think when I began, the web was something that, well, even just think about it like this. I think from a cultural perspective, we went from a global mind state of that can't be true, you read it on the internet, to I don't think that's true, find it on the internet. Right. And I think just that shift right now, the reality of that shift from individuals to corporations has been fascinating. Right. Within my lifetime, I've seen something that didn't exist when I began my academic career to it becoming the ultimate and dominant media form at this stage in my life, and the one that most the only one that matters, quite honestly, to my children as well. So that alone has been fascinating in terms of what it's done to the power dynamic, right? In terms of the accessibility of images and information, to what it's done in terms of gatekeepers and changing the power that they've got. I think, just think about the world of entertainment that we're in right now. We've got this term of influencer, right? And the reality is, I'd argue that influencers have actually always been here to an extent, but there actually had never been a vehicle to allow the general public to get exposure to them, because the big and small screen, the movies and TV, would only accommodate A and B level talent, right? But there are 24 other letters in the alphabet, right? So I think those letters are the ones that are making up the influencer category today, whether it be, micro, macro, or what have you. And how that also changes society. Like we've got places that may never have infrastructure to equal what we have in the States today, but we now have a worldwide mechanism that could allow them to generate revenue, right, via their creativity from a worldwide audience, right? Now, what does that mean to the impact that they could have locally on their communities and what have you? I think all of these things are fascinating, quite honestly. And for me in particular, like, hey, we're in America where English is the dominant language, but we're also at a point now where at any given moment, there are records in the top 5 position on our charts, on our state charts, that aren't in English. Right. And I think that clearly speaks to how the cultural exchange is accelerating.
So I want to touch that. So you've been working with the creative economies actually all your life, and of course from Africana.com that was quite impactful at the time, to Viacom and all these major global platforms, but always with a sense of community. So you touched right before the creative economy. So the creative economy is right now the epicenter of everything we do on a day-to-day. But at the same time, for instance, like you said, most of the influencers or creators can actually right now monetize their brands, their creative achievements. But there's a big paradox, is that most of them are getting the challenge of using digital properly and the digital tools. So everyone effectively can open an account in Spotify, but then monetizing Spotify account or monetizing Instagram or monetizing things, that's a completely different ballgame. And of course, we have all the NFTs and a lot of things right now exploding. I would like to hear from your understanding, of course, in 2 decades, and like you said, you manage probably $1 billion campaigns, and you are close to a lot of global artists, creators, and different things, and you are right now dealing with them. How do you see this challenge? Because it's a big challenge. Even big artists are struggling to use these tools properly. And most of these tools are big platforms controlling the creators, not the other way around. So not with any political level, but more in terms of the fact, because that's a fact. I would like to hear your views on that.
I think it's education. Right. I think what artists need to understand today is that while all of the tools that the platforms make available allow for an unprecedented amount of independence and also, generation of revenue, the other side is that choosing to forego this independent path means that you won't have the aid of, quite frankly, professionals like myself. Right. Like that's what the machine provides you, right? Some of the biggest artists today that have come up through the traditional channels, they didn't have to learn about any of this. They have PR managers, marketing managers, product managers. If you choose to go the independent route, those are all of the roles that you're taking on, along with artists. And there are complexities within those roles. There are reasons why the people who do those roles get paid salaries, right? So I do think artists need to be just honest with themselves about their ability and capacity to really take up so much of what the machine has traditionally done in the past. And I think it's also key to understand at what point can you no longer do it yourself. Right? Because if anything, I would say these tools are simply starter tools, like it's a starter kit that will get your business to a certain extent. But at a certain point, you've got to have the conversation about your business being an artist, right? And your job being to produce music. So if you're handling the business of music, at what point will that begin to impact your ability to produce the product that is that music as well, and just its overall impact on your creative energy and what have you. But I would also argue that it's not the platforms that are controlling the artists, right? The other side of this is the platform doesn't know you. The platform doesn't know your mother, right? In the way that an old school record label manager might come and try to woo you to be on their label as opposed to another. The platforms offer opportunities, and the platforms also almost encourage, I think, multi-platform presence, right? They want you to be on their platform and get the majority of your engagement there. But the reality is you haven't signed a contract with them, right? You don't know if all of your fans are on that platform alone. And this is when I think you start to look at the complexities of you being the artist slash business person as well. Right. You've made a decision to be on as many platforms as possible because you're looking for awareness, reach, and what have you. So you're actually populating those platforms.
I love that point, and I think it's very important because there's this kind of stereotypes that you can blame everyone, and I think in the end of the day it's about taking ownership. That's what I've been doing. That's why I said the political is very sensitive not to go in that direction, because if you start blaming and not doing anything about it, it's our fault as well. So I want to touch, I know that we have limited time, but if you have two more questions. So one of them is, so Spotify in 2021 had 165 million premium subscribers worldwide. And of course, is right now around 30% of the music industry is passing through Spotify. But one of the things that is well less known in Spotify is the tools. You just mentioned the tools. And for instance, even me, I'm learning the tools for both podcasts, for artists, and a lot of other people. So can you talk about this? Because you have a section that is artist.spotify that has fantastic tools that most of it is not known. So if you could actually highlight some of these things and some of these tools that you could, for our audience, because I think it's great for everyone listening to us.
Got it. So I'll try my best there, because that's actually not a section that I manage, right? But it is an incredible one that I encourage everyone to check out. So what I think a lot of people may not realize is that, yes, to your point, Spotify does offer tools of not only creation, but also the monitoring of the progress of your content on the platform as well. And this isn't just for, performers as well. The artist funnel within Spotify and what they do in terms of engaging the communities is actually 360. So when we say artists and the Spotify universe, that team deals with not only actual musicians and performers as well, but all the way down to songwriters and producers. So there's also the @notable handle, which speaks directly to songwriters and highlights that craft. But I think the existence of those alone, quite honestly, are some of the things that intrigue me about the organization, right? I think there are many reasons people want to be involved with music. Right, it's sexy, it's fun, regardless. And many organizations, I think, leverage it as a tool to call attention to whatever else they're doing, right? From star-studded Super Bowl halftime shows to selling phones to tissues and toilet paper. Spotify is committed to the creator. And that is exactly why the artist vertical exists itself, and also speaks directly to producers, songwriters, and ultimately the performers too.
Fantastic. So once this, can you tell a bit about your work right now and how you look at this?
Yeah, indeed. So, I began on Spotify in June 1st, so I'm still getting acclimated within the organization. But as the global head of social media, what I'm really looking at is understanding the entirety of our global footprint, right? The value of our local handles, the touch points that we've already established and maintained in certain regions, and the relationship between those and our global handle as well. Right? As a truly global brand, how can Spotify do more to really provide insight and discovery into music and culture from around the world on the social handles that are at everyone's fingertips, all right? As opposed to, you discovering, let's say, the next Despacito through the traditional channels, right? We're a brand that actually has the ability to surface something like that long before it's made its way to top 40.
Fantastic. So I want to finish with the last question. If you have 2 minutes more, I probably would need more, but definitely is about the future of the music. And now you see, like you mentioned, right now we have this global wealth of sources. And for instance, I'm a huge user of Spotify myself. It's for me, actually, I love it since the beginning. So mostly in terms of the music industry, where you are very involved in the creative industry, what would be, and probably more inspirational, as I know that you are a very motivational person as well. How do you see the main trends that you see, and top level, the things that you would suggest for people listening to us, artists, creators, that actually can use these tools, but as well look at the present and future of creative industries and music?
In terms of the future of the music industry?
Yeah, let's start with that, and then I'm sure you don't have time for more, but we'll get a second one.
Got it. Okay. So I would definitely look towards more independence. All right. I don't think the machines are going anywhere. I think the machines are evolving to meet the needs of the artist. Right. I think the past was you would get signed, right? Like you hope somebody gave you an opportunity to expose your art to the world. And that's where the platforms have stepped in. They have now provided you the opportunity to not only share your art with the world, but monetize it with the world and what have you. But I think now the difference will be, at what point will you have to create a relationship with an organization that can help take you to that next level, help get you in that Super Bowl commercial or halftime show as well. I think the monetization opportunities will only increase, right, for independents as well, especially as distribution continues to broaden. It seems like the internet is ubiquitous, but there's still plenty of places that don't have access, and we don't know what those places have to offer to the world, right? And I think you'll see more worldwide collaboration. All right. I think it's very clear now that you can see the imprint of hip hop and hip hop culture on communities the world over. Right. But what will be the next culture to do that? What will happen when a culture from outside of America has that level of influence within America? I think you're going to see a lot more cultural exchange through music conversation, not only online, but some of our biggest stages and the various countries where those shows are held. But then, things like NFTs too, right? I think those things are going to just really change not only the opportunity for artists, but who we recognize and value as artists as well.
No, I think, well, I have a lot of more questions, but I know that you have limited time, so I want to be respectful of your time. So I think we'll call it volume 01.
Okay.
I know that you have to go now. So I want to thank you for your time. There's a lot of insights here. I think I would like to talk more probably in the next one about the African community, the music, how you see as well Africa that is right now as so much vibrant solutions coming out of there, and I am very involved. But I want to talk as well more about the creative industries. So thank you so much, because I know that you have to leave, Ken, for your time and for being here with us.
It's been great, Dinis. Thanks so much for having me. I look forward to talking with you again.